Good Thursday morning. It's January 27th, 2022 here in eastern Vermont. Like other animals, we want to live. The corporate media and many individuals and organizations would have you believe you will be the last survivor on a dying planet and that you'll enjoy this experience. Never mind the horrors of surviving on a dying planet. Too cold, too hot, too hungry, too thirsty, marinating in ionizing radiation, alone, or more likely surrounded by the bodies of like-minded sociopaths. The star and survivor of your own apocalyptic film, that's you, dying alone under these conditions. Few people know more about this than me. I created a homestead, spent an enormous amount of money doing so to try to maintain the life of myself and my partner at the time for a very long time. So if all of that sounds fun to you, too cold, too hot, hungry, thirsty, marinating in ionizing radiation, if all that sounds fun to you, go for it. That life is not for me. Let's cover a little history, and then I'll present an informed prognosis for the near future. Bear in mind that we have been in the midst of a mass extinction event since at least 1992, when Harvard professor Edward O. Wilson, recently deceased, published his book, Diversity of Life, 1992. So we go back some 30 years that we have known about this mass extinction event. The idea of transitioning away from our fossil-fueled lives refers to grassroots community projects that aim to increase self-sufficiency, which is a great idea. One goal would be to reduce the potential negative impacts of declining oil supply, economic disruption, and climate change. So far, this all sounds great. Indeed, the idea of transition towns came from England's permaculturist Rob Hopkins when he assigned his students at Kinsale Further Education College the task of applying permaculture principles to the concept of peak oil. This was in 2004. The students produced, quote, the Kinsale Energy Descent Action Plan, end quote. That was the name of their plan that they created. Two of Hopkins' students developed the transition towns concept, which was presented to the Kinsale Town Council. The council adopted the plan and began working towards energy independence. Shortly thereafter, Hopkins moved to his hometown of Totnes, England, and began living the dream. Transition Town Totnes was founded in 2006 and formed the inspiration for the founding of other such initiatives. The Transition Network charity organization was founded in 2007. The Transition Handbook was published in 2008. I was a huge fan of transitioning off fossil fuels in light of economic disruption and climate change. This is exactly why I spent more than a decade and considerably more than $1 million to create and live at off-grid homesteads in southern rural New Mexico and then western Belize. Chalk up those experiences to mistakes have been made. Chalk them up too to experiences have been had. I wouldn't have done it any other way, in light of the knowledge I had at my disposal at the time. If I had then the knowledge that I have now, I would have done things differently. But I think we can all say that, can't we? If only we knew. I came to my senses upon further study of climate change, specifically abrupt, irreversible climate change, and also the horrors of nuclear power. By then, it was too late to get my money back, much less my precious time. My freely available work during the last decade has focused on ensuring you avoid the mistakes I've made. I'm not trying to prevent you from sharing the adventures that I've had, however. In this video, I'll point out a few people and organizations who offer abundant, incorrect advice that will take you further down the path I trod for far too long. First up, a blog post titled Deep Crisis, Deep Adaptation was posted July 2nd, 2021 by Rupert Reed at his blog. I'm not going to give you the links to this blog at Nature Bats Last or this channel, because if you want to find this nonsense, you'll have to do it for yourself. Again, July 2nd, 2021 by Rupert Reed at his blog, and this blog was written for Polity Books. That's what it says. It's about adapting. This particular post is about adapting, as if it's possible to adapt to our extinction. It ends with this paragraph. This book is systems thinking for our time. It opens up a space for a debate that has been avoided for too long. We hope deeply that you will take up the invitation it offers. Our book is published by Polity Press. Well, I think there you have it. We can adapt and apply systems thinking to everything except, of course, our own extinction. And the book is, this post in this book is published by Polity Press. Maybe this entire bloated blog post is about selling books. Not bad work if you can get it. Next up, also by Rupert Reed at Euronews.com, February 28th, 2021, a post called 3 Ways to Stop Climate Change and an Ecologically Induced Societal Collapse. The subhead, Rupert Reed, a professor at the University of East Anglia, offers his take on how, together, we might be able to prevent climate collapse. That's a direct quote. Some 800 words and 3 sections later, we get to the completely irrelevant points of this article. Quote, my 3 core proposals to address this desperate situation are 1. Citizens' assemblies, constitutionally empowered to take the necessary decisions to bring us from incipient disaster to survival and flourishing. 2. Guardians for future generations. Sitting above Parliament, there should be a permanent panel of guardians for future generations, as if there are going to be any future generations. 3, adopting the precautionary principle. This philosophical, ethical, and legal framework that would inform the decision-making of the Citizens' Assembly and guardians for future generations. So this is an idea previously adopted with 7-generation thinking by the Iroquois Confederacy. And here we are some 300 years, 400 years later, thinking, wow, wouldn't this be a great idea? Yeah, a little late to the party there, Rupert. Here's how this blog post finishes. You cannot say you did not know. All that remains is to consider what you will do now. Wow. Consider what you will do now in the light of the misinformation you've just been presented. None of these 3 actions is useful. None will stop climate change or, quote, an ecologically induced societal collapse, end quote. As you might recall, those were the promises made in the headline of this article. Next post is by Jim Bendell, posted January 6th, 2022, so fewer than 2 months ago. Also at Jim Bendell's blog. It also serves as the editorial for issue 9 of the Deep Adaptation Quarterly. And it's called What If This Is It? Responding Consciously to Societal Disruption. Not surprisingly for an anti-vaxxer, this post is not rooted in evidence. Here's how it starts. As the initiator of what has become a movement for deep adaptation to societal disruption and collapse, I am pleased to have this means to communicate, to share with you what I think is important as we experience more troubled times. In DA, deep adaptation, conversations, we often speak of societal collapse, yet do not often explore what we mean by society. Then he gives a couple of examples. With such topics in mind, he writes, I liked a recent summary of the deep adaptation movement in a review of my new book. Then he goes on, skipping a paragraph or 2. Many of us who anticipate social disruption and collapse have been fortunate to avoid much direct disruption to our own lives due to environmental loss and its knock-on effects. How will we respond when we sense our immediate vulnerability and that of our loved ones? Well, yeah, when you retain your position on campus in a university setting, you hold on to a lot of privilege. I certainly know about that. He goes on, 2021 can be seen as the first instance of environmentally related societal disruption affecting everyone to different degrees in rich countries. How have we responded? Well, it's not the first example, although it might be the first example that he's come across in rich countries, such as where he lives. Skipping a couple of paragraphs, the climate emergency will not be receding ever. Well, man, you got that one right. That is why leadership and communication from people who do not want their ideas on how to care for each other to be shaped by corporate propaganda will be essential, and are why I keep teaching at university. Maintaining the enormous privilege associated with being a teacher on a university might have a little bit to do with it as well. Maybe not. Anyway, it's small wonder Reed and Bendel are the go-to academics for Extinction Rebellion. The folks at XR never mention aerosol masking or the near certainty of nuclear facilities melting down in the wake of societal collapse. Writers John Michael Greer and James Howard Kunstler happily join Reed and Bendel in failing to mention both of these critical factors. More commentary about renowned collapsitarians Greer and Kunstler seems in order, and so I'll provide a little bit of that here. First, The Long Road Down, Decline and the Deindustrial Future was published in 2004 by John Michael Greer at his blog and referenced frequently by Greer since then. And it includes this paragraph, quote, "Gradual disintegration, not sudden catastrophic collapse, is the way civilizations end. It usually takes somewhere between 150 and 350 years for a civilization to decline and fall. This casts a startling light on today's crisis. It took America 2 centuries of incremental change to transform itself from an agrarian society to its current status as an aging industrial behemoth. Now, with its resource base failing, it faces the common fate of civilizations. Yet if that fate follows its usual timeline, it could easily take 2 more centuries of incremental change to transform America to an agrarian society again." End quote. 2 more centuries? Deep in the category of hoping, praying, wishful thinking comes the idea that we'll be having this conversation in another 2 centuries with John Michael Greer at the head of the room. James Howard Kunstler predicted the collapse of civilization would occur in the year 2000. He has frequently repeated this claim in his annual update, claiming that this is the year. His blog and his other writings, including a few books, indicate societal collapse is at hand and has been for more than 2 decades. None of these writings mention aerosol masking. Instead, they indicate we will somehow return to an earlier time. Our supreme intelligence will allow us to go back to the Bronze Age, or even further before. He implies and sometimes clearly states that if you can grow or shoot your own food, you'll be fine. None of these folks talk about planetary hospice. Indeed, when it comes to topics such as planetary hospice and our own extinction, these individuals, especially including Jim Bendel, will not allow the conversation on their blogs or in their spaces on social media. My goal is not to scare you. I'm here to inform you. I'd rather not have you repeat my frequent, important, life-altering mistakes. It's time to live fully, with urgency. It's time to help others. Help others. A thought that doesn't come up in any of these writings I've talked about so far. It's time to help others as a means of improving your own emotional health. In short, it's time to live with death in mind, fully aware that any moment could be your last. After all, at the edge of extinction, only love remains. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing to this channel. If you subscribe, be sure to click the bell so you'll receive future notifications about other posts in this space. Feel free to share this video. Become a member of this channel for additional perks at as little as 99 cents per month. Mostly though, thanks for watching.